with that having been said, I think it's time to talk about this series against the Baltimore Orioles. And who better to talk about the Baltimore Orioles with a returning guest who I had all the way back in May. A lot's changed since then, but we got Brady Reuter. Brady, how's it going?
Hank, doing awesome. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good despite an up and down season from the Yankees, but obviously we got a lot to talk about with regards to the Orioles. And, I think the first thing we got to talk about is the Monday night game, which I actually went to, by the way. I was hoping to see something really good in Anthony Rizzo's debut, but unfortunately we know that was not meant to be. Jorge Lopez actually pitched pretty well that day. Well, okay, I wouldn't say he dominated, but he didn't give up a hit until the sixth inning. He was very hit or miss. He walked a lot of guys. It wasn't one of those games where you really felt a no-hitter because of his wildness. But at the end of the day, the Yankees could not cash in on runners in scoring position opportunities. In fact, they went 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position. What were your thoughts on his pitching, first of all?
Right. Well, you kind of touched on it, Hank. So it wasn't like that John Means no-hitter. Didn't have the same kind of feel to it.
Right.
However, Jorge Lopez and our favorite former New York Met, Matt Harvey, they both have been very solid the last 3 or 4 starts. Basically, since the All-Star break, they've come on pretty strong. Lopez, he finished 6 innings, only gave up 1 hit, but had 5 walks. So it was a little wild, but he also got into a bit of a jam in the 5th inning. I can't remember who the batter was, but I believe it was Austin Hayes was playing left field and actually made a great catch. It was 1st and 3rd, and then Austin Hayes made a great catch to basically keep it as a sacrifice fly, only 1 run allowed. And that was really the most difficult spot Lopez was in. And other than that, he pretty much had a really solid day.
Yeah, that was one of the turning points. I think the other one was you had DJ LeMahieu hitting into a double play in the 7th inning. That was really the Yankees' last shot at making it a game, because I think even though the Orioles were up 7-1, they're not a team where I feel like you think any lead is really safe. And with the improved Yankee lineup, I think if DJ gets that hit, maybe the Yankees have a chance of probably coming back. But that double play was really a killer, especially because, as I said, you were down by like 6 runs at that point. They really needed a little boost, a little bit of momentum, but that was pretty much it. But the other big thing that happened was Andrew Heaney, another Yankees trade acquisition, made his debut. Coming into this game, he had an ERA of 5.47, which is disgusting, not great, and low-key, I was hoping that a change of scenery for him in New York would help him, but then again, I really should have known better, because if you look at the track record of Yankee pitchers over the years, a lot of them are either ruined when they come to New York, and there are also some that really don't quite develop. And Andrew Heaney really wasn't different from a lot of the other pitchers that have failed thus far. It's only 1 game. I don't really want to get into put up too much stock into him, but as I said, he wasn't good. He gave up 4 solo home runs. Now, granted, a solo home run isn't as bad as like a 2-run home run or a grand slam or 3-run, but not good. That being said, one of the guys who hit that the guy who hit the first home run was not a surprise. That was none other than Cedric Mullins, who, let's be honest, I think he's really established himself as a star so far in baseball. I think if he were playing for any other team, he would get a lot of recognition. And it really says something that he didn't get a lot of votes in the All-Star game, and that really took a Trout injury for him to get started. But let's talk about the impact of Cedric Mullins and how much he's really meant to Baltimore as of now.
Yes, sir, Hank. You really hit the nail on the head. Mullins has been the leader of this clubhouse. Him and Trey Mancini both, but Mullins especially with the 1-year contract he's on, where he's just making a little bit above the league minimum salary. He's been killing it. It was definitely a push for him to get into the All-Star game. I know, especially on social media, the Orioles Twitter team has really been big with it. I know I voted for him, but it was definitely kind of sad to see when I played with Mike Trout, who had played maybe a third of the games up to that point, was already leading. And it really took a lot of extraneous circumstances for Mullins to even get into the starting lineup. But thank God he did. He definitely deserved it. It wasn't like the, compensatory Orioles pick, the one guy that just because it's baseball and they need one player. No, he earned his way on there. He will get a big payday this offseason, I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So that home run that he hit in this game was his 18th on the season. He now has 37 RBIs. His batting average is .323. He's not an all-star by accident. Let's put it that way. And now the other home runs that were hit, I believe Urias hit the one that made it 4-0. That was the one that pretty much, I think that was another thing that really broke the straw. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, because Heaney got removed not long after. He almost gave up a home run to I believe it was Pedro Severino. He hit it deep into center field. An inch or two further, it would have gone over the center field fence and probably landed in Monument Park, but it pretty much summed up what was really an awful night for the Yankees.
Yeah, it seemed like as soon as Severino hit that ball, the fans just, I mean, you were there, Hank, but it seemed like to me on TV, the fans were about ready to throw a riot. They were just done with him at that point.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think, and what I forgot to mention, Austin Hayes hit the second home run. That was a back-to-back job that him and Mullins had. And
Right.
you also had Ryan Mountcastle hitting a home run. So, yeah, really not a great game. Big story of that game, obviously, was the cat running onto the field, which I know you probably won't agree with me about this, but I really think from being there, I think the cat was really more entertaining than the game itself, because, of course, I'm going to say that when the Yankees get blown up. That's just me being biased.
Hey, I mean, whatever keeps the crowd entertained, as long as they're not throwing baseballs or, dare I say, cats at opposing outfielders in the outfield, like poor old Alex Verdugo a little while ago.
Yeah, no, I hate hearing about that stuff. It makes our fan base look bad, and it's
Yeah.
just, I don't know. You go to a game to have fun. It's a privilege. Don't throw stuff on the field. Just have fun. If you want to heckle a guy, like, I'm totally fine with that, as long as it's like not going too far, is what I'm saying. But throwing stuff on the field, no, that's where I draw the line.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I'm just thinking about a couple of years ago when the Orioles played the Blue Jays, and Hyun-Soo Kim was it was actually the wild card game in Toronto, and our left fielder, Hyun-Soo Kim at the time, caught a fly ball, and then some fan threw a beer, and then I believe he was banned for life for all major league stadiums. So it's just not worth it. Like, yeah, you might get upset that your player gets an out, or your player grounds out or flies out. Why you got to throw something at a player, the other team, just to basically kick you out of all baseball stadiums the rest of your life? It's just not worth it,
yeah, no, for sure. And Tom actually has a question, predictions for Tyon tonight. Here's the thing about Jameson Tyon. I think he's going to probably go. Before tonight's game, I had him going 5 or 6 innings, maybe giving up 3 runs. Unfortunately, right now, that prediction isn't really looking good. The Yankees, as we speak, are currently in the top of the first inning. They haven't gotten a bat yet, but Baltimore's already up 2-0. Ryan Mountcastle hit a sacrifice fly, and Austin Hayes drove in Urias with an RBI single. So I don't know. Hopefully the Yankees come back, but we'll see what happens. Depending on the way the offense is, I don't really trust them. And then Connor Walsh says, y'all giving Javi love? Look, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think Javi Baez was a great acquisition by the New York Mets. Sorry if I'm going into a little bit of a tangent, by the way, but he provides some infield depth, which is really going to help once Lindor comes back. And, he's a good bat to have in that lineup. Unfortunately, what I forgot to mention earlier was he did end up getting hurt in one of the games, but looks like he's going to be fine. The Mets didn't end up putting him on the DL, but I really think that was a solid acquisition the Mets made.
Yeah, I mean, with Lindor, he got the big contract, but he's been struggling on the field and at the plate, and then been injured, like you said. So having someone like Javier Baez, who won a World Series with, the Chicago Cubs many years ago, when that dynasty broke up, he's there filling in a role in the meantime. Some people, I think, probably get rubbed off the wrong way with Javi, but he definitely brings a lot of excitement and a lot of energy to the ballpark. Just watching that walk-off game against, I believe it was the Reds a couple of weeks ago, he hit that fly ball into center field, and he just sat there and stared at it for like 5 minutes and just got super excited. So that does add a lot of energy. And I think the Mets, especially with the Phillies not far behind, they need just a spark, something to kind of rejuvenate their clubhouse and get them going and trending upward to basically distance themselves, because it's a pretty tight race right now in the NL East. So they're going to want some things, any sort of ground, in order to maintain where they want to be.
Oh, for sure. And the last thing I want to say about Monday night's game before I move on. So Brandon Hyde at the end of the game, he said that it was the most complete team win for the Baltimore Orioles. I would imagine that you probably agree with this statement.
Yeah, Hank, I probably would. So as a whole, the Orioles have been a competitive team when it comes to getting guys on and getting guys in, but the pitching has really been the biggest downfall, especially in the bullpen. And if you actually look at the total run totals in Major League Baseball as of before tonight's game, the Orioles actually have scored one more run overall than the Yankees. The biggest letdown has been our pitching, especially in our bullpen. But as we mentioned before, Jorge Lopez was really solid and went 6 innings. Bullpen was good, and base running, especially getting guys first to third. It was aggressive and it was solid. Brian Mountcastle, who's not known for his speed, he made some solid base running efforts that night, and that was good to see. And then we had some good defense from Michael Franco at third base, and like I already said, Austin Hayes in left field. So if we get more outings like that, the Orioles are going to be a competitive team. Maybe not a playoff team, but if they can play like that consistently, then they're going to be a competitive team in the AL East. And that's all you really ask for, especially as a team that's rebuilding and trying to look toward to see what our piece is going to be in the future and how we're going to shape up down the road.
Before I get to my next question, let me acknowledge Tom's comment. I'm assuming he's talking about Javier Baez, but he said he's too big of a personality for me, but good acquisition talent-wise. Yeah, I totally can see that. I totally understand where Tom's coming from. But anyways, let's backtrack a little bit, because when last we spoke, the Orioles were on their way to playing a series with the Yankees. Yankees ended up winning 2 out of 3. They lost the third game, but little did we know that would be the last win that the Orioles would have in the month of May. If you told me that, I would have been like, what? But as it turns out, they not only lost the remainder of their games in May, but they had a rough stretch in mid-June. I think they actually had a losing streak that went as high as 8 or 10 games. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
it was 14 actually. Yeah, it was really rough.
Oh gosh, more than that. I knew it was pretty bad. I just wasn't sure about the number, but I could have sworn it was at least 8 to 10. But wow. But anyways, I think a lot of stuff's happened. What do you think were some of the main factors that really led to their slide in June?
Yeah, it was like you said, Hank. It was definitely tough. They had some games where they were leading either early or in the middle or later in the game. But like I already mentioned, our ERA is the worst in baseball at 5.47. And in the back end of our bullpen, between whoever we try to throw out as a closer, either Cesar Valdez, Cole Sulser, Dylan Tate, or Tanner Scott, it seems like no one's really been able to solidify the role as a closer. Tanner Scott especially has been very wild, and even just last weekend, the Orioles beat Detroit. They split with a 4-game series, but he was very wild in a couple of his games. And some of his games, right? They maybe just got outmatched, got beat by better teams, but there were plenty of games where they were right there, and just like the game on Memorial Day, May 31st, they were right there with the Twins and went into extras and just lost an extra inning game. So they had plenty of those kind of games where they couldn't get the break they needed, and they just ended up on the wrong end of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the other things that really hurt afterwards, if I remember correctly, they also had a long road losing streak too, right? And the last road game that they had won in that stretch was the no-hitter of John Means, which in my eyes, that was a perfect game, because I think even the one guy that got on base ended up getting erased not long afterwards. But he got 27 up, 27 down. Definitely one of the best games pitched in our lifetime. And unfortunately, his luck kind of took a rough turn. He ended up getting hurt, and he actually didn't win a game after that no-hitter until July 31st. And we all know it was because he missed some time due to his injury. And what's your level of concern with regards to him? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I saw on your Instagram you actually went to one of his rehab starts, no?
Yeah, so it was actually July 4th in Aberdeen, Maryland, home of the Aberdeen Ironbirds at Cal Ripken Stadium. It's the high single-A team for the Orioles. It's about an hour or so from my home area. But, yeah, John Means pitched 2 innings. He struck out 2 and he gave up a home run. But it was a rehab assignment. It was just to kind of get him back into the feel of things. So it was a good game. The Ironbirds played well. They won. But with John Means, right, the first couple of games back were a little shaky. Mainly the first game back that was televised on YouTube. It was against Tampa Bay Rays on July 20th. He did make some more progress. His next outing was actually Sunday, July 25th against the Washington Nationals, where he was pitching really solid. And then with 2 outs in the 7th inning, he got into a jam and gave up a 3-run homer to Ryan Zimmerman. So if not for that, it would have been a really solid game. O's came back and won that game, which was awesome in the bottom of the 9th. And then the following game he pitched was last Saturday on July 31st against Detroit. He went 6 innings and only gave up 1 run. So he's looking like he was, coming back to himself now. So he's actually on the mound tonight. So I'll be excited to see how he does. And as long as he can stay healthy and just continue to slowly, be consistent, make progress, I'm not too concerned with him because I know going into 2020, I should say going to the end of 2020, he struggled really down the stretch, but started to pick it up. So as long as he can stay healthy, I think he'll definitely have a very solid offseason and look to be the starting guy going into 2021 for the near future. 2022, excuse me.
Yeah, no, I hope he bounces back soon. It's been, as we touched on in the last episode that we did together, it's really been a while since you've had a legit ace. Definitely, I would have to say since Mike Messina. But in any event, glad to see he's doing well. So far, it's still 2-0, bottom of the first inning. I think Matt Harvey's actually starting this game for the Orioles.
Oh, yeah, actually, you're right. The Dark Knight, he's coming back to New York. You're right.
Of course, and knowing the Yankees were probably going to struggle with him because that's their luck. But anyways, we got a few more comments. My mom says hello, and Connor again says, again, I'm assuming he's talking about Javi Baez. He's a reason to watch baseball, love the competitiveness, and he's a former MVP candidate. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that completely. And so let's also talk about that National Series. You must have been pretty ecstatic about sweeping them. I don't know what your opinion is on the Nationals, but that's a pretty big rivalry, I know, Baltimore and D.C.
Oh, yeah, it's the Beltway series. Every year, the O's Nationals, at least, no matter who the Orioles are playing in the interleague matchups, they always will match up with them. Pretty much, I think, since Washington came to Baltimore in the mid-2000s. So the first time they played in Washington, the Orioles were swept. And that was one of the games where Ryan Mountcastle hit a grand slam in the first inning, and then we gave up a grand slam to Ryan Zimmerman. So that was the time. That was in the middle of their 14-game losing streak, right? But this was good. This weekend over in Baltimore, the O's had a good crowd, and I believe that Saturday game, a couple of Saturdays ago, that home crowd, that was the largest home crowd since I think 2019. They had over 31,000 fans, and that was a solid win. And then Sunday's game was exciting. That was where they came from behind. And in the ninth inning, they walked it off. It was when they came back, and then Ramon Arias hit the ground ball to third base, and Ryan McKenna, who hit his first career home run that day, he's a utility guy, more of a role player. He's known for his defense and his speed. He slid home and scored the game-winning run, and I was excited. I was pumped up. So it's definitely good, as a Baltimore, Nate, being born in Baltimore and always being a Baltimore fan, it's always nice when we beat up Washington because, they won the World Series a couple years ago. The Orioles has been almost 40 years for us. So we've kind of had a less amount of success in a while, considering the age of how long we've been around. But, it's definitely fun when we play each other. I think it's always been really competitive for many years. And it seems like no matter how good or bad each team is, the series are always very tight. It kind of reminds me of Ravens Steelers. If you look at the NFL, where both teams, no matter their records or how their seasons are going, they're always competitive and they always seem to find a way to split a game each year.
I don't know if I'd compare it to Ravens Steelers necessarily, but it does remind me a bit of Yankees Mets because, obviously, regardless of the records, more often than not, at least 80 to 90% of the years, whenever the Yankees play the Mets for a Subway Series, it often ends in like a 2-2 or a 3-3 split. Nobody really dominates the series. Obviously, there's a few exceptions, but I think it really makes sense. I feel like it's probably the same way in the Bay Area with the Giants and the A's, and then in Southern California, you got the Dodgers and the Angels, and then obviously in Chicago, the Cubs and the White Sox. But that's neither here nor there. That was a pretty big win, and I think the real significance of that series was obviously you guys pretty much broke the Nationals, let's face it, because after the Sunday game, I guess Mike Rizzo, the GM, thought, oh, well, we're going to have to blow it up. Let's trade Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. And, I think they got a decent haul considering, like I mentioned earlier in the show, they got one of the top catching prospects in the leagues, and they got other pitcher, Josiah Gray, who, fun fact, for those of you New Yorkers who are watching, Josiah Gray is actually someone who I saw pitch against Horace Greeley back when I was in high school. He's a New Rochelle native. I don't remember what year he graduated from New Rochelle High School, but it's pretty cool to see someone who, to me, is local doing pretty well in the minors and even getting a little taste of Major League Baseball. So on a personal note, I had to mention that. But in any event, I really think that series definitely broke the Washington Nationals. And obviously it made the LA Dodgers stronger too. But that's a tangent for another day. I think the Dodgers, without a doubt, it's not just the National League West. I think the National League as a whole might be theirs to lose. But anyways, let's get back to the Orioles. Another guy I want to talk about is Trey Mancini. Now, obviously, We know the best player on the Orioles. I don't know if I'm sure you probably agree with this. I think it's Cedric Mullins, but Trey Mancini's story has been absolutely inspirational. Great to see him come back after all he went through about a year ago. And, to see him come pretty close to winning the home run derby, it definitely had to have given the city of Baltimore something to really cheer about and get excited over.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. I was fortunate enough. I thought I had to be away for work, but I was able to catch the game or the All Star, the home run derby rather. Yeah, it was really fun. I know Trey. Like, listen to his post game interviews. He was pretty nervous at the beginning. If you
Mm-hmm.
watched the first round, he only hit a couple home runs, and then he was hitting a lot of line drives. So he had to take that time out and then just get a drink of water and then reevaluate. But then that's when he went on a roll and really started hitting bomb. And it was also cool to see him keep his approach. He had a lot of ones to dead center in Colorado and to right field too, like way up there by the ivy in dead center field, and then go into right field. Yeah, he really, I think, won the hearts of a lot of people, especially being a person who recovered from stage 3 colon cancer and really given a lot of people hope, especially people who are struggling with cancer in their families or in their lives
Right.
themselves. Yeah, Mancini has been definitely a solid power hitter, but all around very clutch. For a little while, think back when I came on with you, Hank, he was probably up there in one of the leads in baseball in RBIs. Now he's not
I think
really in the top
actually.
echelon right now, but he's definitely doing solidly. And he's coming off that 2019 season, of course, where he hit 35 home runs, drove 97. So he's probably going to hit. I can see him hitting around 25, 30 this year. I believe he's already at 18 right now. And he's under contract, just a 1-year deal we signed with him. He's going to be going into his age 30 season next year, so he's getting up there in age, but enters arbitration year 3 next year. So I'll be disappointed if the Orioles don't bring him back and don't keep him around for the near future. I really want them to keep him as, maybe not the centerpiece. I think Cedric Mullins will be the centerpiece, but I think Trey Mancini should definitely be the guy that's also there as more like the veteran leader that kind of is the guy that the young people can come up and see, how a veteran and carries himself in the clubhouse and how he plays every day. He's a very professional, hitter and baseball player and an all-around human being. And I think he really gives a lot of people, especially in the city of Baltimore, a lot of life and a lot of excitement.
Yeah, definitely. And if the Orioles, depending on how long it really takes for them to finally field a competitive team, and if he's still there, I think he would definitely be the captain and probably the main leader on that team that can really be like the seasoned veteran, like that a lot of people rely on. So, yeah, I think it would be really interesting to see what they do about him. I mean, it's tough though, because as much as you'd love to see him back, the one thing you want to avoid is a really bad contract a la Chris Davis.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I think he definitely would be someone that's great to have. I like his mindset, and he's really someone that even as a division rival, I can't help but root for him and want him to do well and appreciate his story and how great it was and how much he's really bringing life to a struggling team, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Of course, the Orioles being where they're at, he's probably one of the most famous players on the team. One if not baseball. He's honestly, if he was on any other team like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Padres, the White Sox, the Phillies, the Mets, he'd be a starting first baseman or DH on any of those teams, right? So yeah, he adds a lot of important characteristics. Anybody would want him. So really, we're really glad, we're really lucky in the city of Baltimore. We got a player like him who's just steady on the course and is just solid and continuously shows a lot of the young guys just how to carry himself, how to be a good human being, be a good man.
Yeah, definitely. And hey, if the Orioles for some reason can't keep him around, I really hope for his sake he plays for a contender, because I think he definitely deserves to have a lot of success in his career. But anyways, another guy that we were talking about that I know you really like was Ramon Urias. And as I mentioned, he hit the 4th home run in that Monday night bombshell against Andrew Heaney. Tell me about his hitting with runners in scoring position. Do you think he's going to be in the lineup for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, so he's been pretty clutch the last couple of months. He wasn't the everyday starting infielder. He's kind of switched between second base and shortstop. It's been kind of a platoon between guys like Stevie Wilkerson, Pat Valaika, Domingo Leyba, Ramon Arias, Freddie Galvis, they just traded way back to the Phillies, his old original team. But Arias he's been pretty clutch. So I'm definitely excited for him. He's batting around 280 or so and driven in, I think, at least 20 runs. He's got some power too. And he was actually one of the young guys I touched on in their original meeting, Hank, when I was talking to you back in May. So
Right, I remember that.
to see if he's going to continuously, hit the way he is. And he's a young guy, so he's not making a lot of money right now. So that's the thing, right? We got these young guys who are just coming into their own. Well, then that's the time we gotta make the most of the time because, as much as I hate to say it, like it's great that they make money when they get paid a lot of money. Not necessarily saying he's going to be that, but what if he becomes next Manny Machado? He could be great, but we got to make sure we use our contracts wisely because we get another Chris Davis, so we don't want that, right?
Yeah, no, I don't want him to become Bob Bonilla 2.0, or Chris Davis, that is. But yeah, no, So, what are your overall expectations for the Orioles going into the next few months of the season remaining? Can't believe we're already in August by now.
Yeah, it's almost this is the time of year, especially in Baltimore. Football season is on everyone's mind now because let's face it, the Orioles are not gonna probably finish within 20 games over or under 500. They're gonna be looking at another pretty rough year. Honestly, if the Orioles can finish above 62 and a half wins, which is where Vegas had us at the beginning of the season, I'd be very, very surprised, but also pretty happy. It's going to be a push because right now they're 30 games under with not a whole lot left. So it's going to take them playing right around 500 ball, with better than 500 baseball in order to avoid 100 losses and get to 63 wins. But that'd be a good year as long as we have a good group of guys who are in well, and then we got time for Adley Rutschman, who I believe I actually predicted make it called up this year. At this point, I'm leaning towards let's leave in the minor leagues until next year, especially when he's the catching and working with some of our young arms like DL Hall and Grayson Rodriguez. Considering pitching is our biggest need probably right now, let's keep Adley down there with those guys. Let them come up next year when they get another full off season with spring training in between because we were kind of set back with 2020 being basically a lost year for a lot of these guys. So let's just keep them down in the minors until they're ready to go. I think next year they'll be at least Adley will be called up. Probably he'll make the team out of spring training. I'm going to predict.
I can see that. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets called up in September just so he could get that like taste of the big leagues. But I think what you're saying makes sense. You kind of want to let him get more playing time, let him season the arms of some of their young pitchers. So, I mean, who knows? All I know is this is a guy who's, I know, not just the Orioles, but Major League Baseball ranks really high on like the prospect depth chart or food chain or whatever you want to call it. So this is a guy you really do not want to mess with. So I think the more I really think about it, I think your explanation of wanting to let him give it a try in spring training really makes sense. And definitely best of luck to him and best of luck to the Orioles going forward. But before we end this discussion, I think we need to talk about the rest of the AL East because when you look at the top four teams, it's really bunched up. The Yankees and the Blue Jays are right in the mix still. And obviously you have Tampa and Boston being neck and neck for first place. And based off of the trading deadline, I have to ask, who do you really think is the favorite to win that division?
Yeah, I mean, Hank, you kind of said it. It's a 4-team race, but I really probably go between Boston and Tampa Bay. I mean, Tampa Bay, of course, won the American League last year, so they're going to be a threat. And then Boston also has a great offense, and they've been probably a lot better than I think everyone expected. I do think Tampa is a slight favorite. I mean, I do really love that Nelson Cruz acquisition they made. Of course, former Oriole had a great season in Baltimore, but even at his age, he's still hitting like crazy. Boston did get some good moves, and they got right-hander Hansel Robles and left-hander Austin Davis, as well as getting Kyle Schwarber from the Nationals, one of the other Nationals pieces they traded away. So that will be fun to watch down the stretch. I think Tampa, I'll give the slight edge to Tampa based off of their track record of having a little bit better pitching. And then between your Yankees, Hank, and then your Yankees, yeah. Your guys, Hank,
I've been called that before. It's okay.
I think those teams they're in the mix. It's just they have a bit of an outside shot because they have some games to make up. with New York, I mean, you kind of touched on already, but mine are it's just the guys that are able to get on base without having to rely on the home run ball, a la Joey Gallo, you know, Aaron Judge, Gary Sanchez, Giancarlo Stanton, like guys like Trey Turner, who quite honestly I think would have made the Yankees a little bit more well rounded as a lineup. I just think they're too much reliant on the three true outcomes, you know, the strikeout, the home run, the walk. I think they need guys that have a little bit better on base percentage, like Trey Turner, can kind of do it all. With Toronto, they actually have one of the top five offenses in baseball and runs scored, and one of the best overall offenses. I do like some of the moves they made, acquiring Jose Barrios from the Minnesota Twins and Joaquin Soria from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Because pitching with the Yankees and Blue Jays, I think, is going to have to improve. They want to catch Boston or Tampa, so it should be fun down the stretch. You know, as an Orioles fan, without a team with a dog in the fight, I'll just sit back and hopefully we can play spoiler. Maybe somehow knock everybody out just for the fun of it. You know.
Yeah, that's been me with the Giants in like the past 4 to 5 years during football season. Hopefully not this year, but that's a tangent and subject for another day, maybe Big Blue Avenue. But anyways, yeah, no, I really agree with that. A lot of what you said. I think, like I've been mentioning many times on this show, and even when I've talked to other people outside, I think the Yankees, as much as I like the way their lineup improved, the problem was I would have much preferred, say, an Adam Frazier or even a Whit Merrifield would have really helped our lineup too. I like him. He's a good contact hitter. He's really fast too. So I think he probably would have driven in a lot of runs as well. And like I said, Joey Gallo, too much strikeouts, too low batting average. It's really not really my ideal batting lineup. And if you look at the Yankees over the past few years, they've lived and died by the home run. You look where that's got them. So as much as I want to put the Yankees in the wild cards like scenario, I'm just not 100% sure. Toronto, I think, really is a legit threat. I think Jose Barrios instantly improves that pitching staff. You already got Hyun-Jin Ryu, who's pretty solid, and then you get Robbie Ray, who's kind of hit or miss, but when he's on, he's on. And if you have all of them clicking, then the Blue Jays, watch out for them. The only thing is, I think they might be behind too much with for the division for them to really win the division, but I can easily see Toronto being a wild card team for sure. So, and if they get into that wild card game, watch out because they have a good amount of starters now that can really help them. So Blue Jays, I would not sleep on them at all. But when it comes down to Boston and Tampa Bay, I kind of said this last week when I was on the Alec Walsh show down the block sports. I think Tampa, based on reputation, would be the easy choice to pick for that division. But I also would not be shocked with Boston because if you look on paper, the Red Sox have a really good lineup that also got better with the addition of Kyle Schwarber. And he's got that Fenway swing where he can park home runs probably over the monster and onto that short right field fence. So I could see him making a big impact. And their pitching, if Chris Sale comes back as scheduled, they could potentially be a really dangerous team. And, you know, the Red Sox, I'm not as surprised as most people that they're really fighting so hard in the mix for the division because, look, last year we all know what happened. They were bad. They were pretty high in the draft, one of their worst seasons in a long time. But another thing to consider is it was a 60-game season. When you really look at everything with the Red Sox, you knew their lineup was going to be a factor. It was just a matter of their pitching just couldn't get much worse than it was last year. So I figured they probably would have an outside shot at them being a threat. I just didn't think they'd be this good this early, like during their rebuild. But it goes to show you that Chaim Bloom, with his Tampa Bay experience, can really pull off a heist or two. And he's a really smart GM, and he's really done a good job building that Red Sox team. So if based on, like I said, I would probably give Boston based on what they have on paper, but I'm not going to rule out Tampa. I think Tampa probably, based off their track record, it's going to be them.